Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's Tech Forum session. I'm Ainsley Sparks, the Marketing and Communications Manager at BookNet. Welcome to Applying Content Marketing Hacks from Tech to Publishing. Before we get started, BookNet Canada acknowledges that our operations are remote and our colleagues currently contribute their work from the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Wendat, and Mi'kmaq peoples, the original nations of the lands we now call Beaton, Brampton, Guelph, Halifax, Toronto, and Vaughan. We encourage you to visit the native-land.ca website to learn more about the peoples whose land you're joining from today. Moreover, BookNet endorses the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada and supports an ongoing shift from gatekeeping to space making in the book industry. So the book industry has long been an industry of gatekeeping. Anyone who works at any stage of the book supply chain carries a responsibility to serve readers by publishing, promoting, and supplying works that represent the wide extent of human experiences and identities in all that complicated intersectionality. We at BookNet are committed to working with our partners in the industry as we move towards a framework that supports space making, which ensures that marginalized creators and professionals all have the opportunity to contribute, work, and lead. And now for some administrative things. For our webinar today, if you're having any difficulties with Zoom or any tech-related questions, please put them in the chat, or you can email us at techforum@booknetcanada.ca. As you might see, we're providing live ASL and closed captioning for this presentation. To see the captions, you can find the Show Captions button in the Zoom menu at the bottom of your screen. And if during the presentations you have questions for us or questions for our speaker, you can use the Q&A panel found in the bottom menu, and we'll address those at the end of the session. And lastly, we'd like to remind attendees of the Code of Conduct. Please do be kind, be inclusive, be respectful of others, including of their privacy, be aware of your words and actions, and please report any violations to techforum@booknetcanada.ca. Do not harass speakers, hosts, or attendees, or record these sessions. We have a zero tolerance policy, and you can find the entire Code of Conduct at booknetcanada.ca/code-of-conduct. So with that out of the way, it's time to introduce our speaker. Brownyn Kienapple is the Director of Content Marketing at PolicyMe, formerly of Venngage and FreshBooks. She specializes in startup B2C, SEO strategy, content partnerships, developing and implementing brand and editorial guidelines, competitor analysis, distribution, and content performance monitoring and analysis. So now, Brownyn, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ainsley. I'm very happy to be here with all of you. Hello, I am Brownyn. Welcome to Content Marketing. No BS, low budget guide to driving revenue from content. Let's do this thing. All right. Oh, okay. Please ignore the fact that I don't know how to use Google Slides. Okay, what's on the agenda today? I'll do just a little bit more about who I am, how we do content marketing at the company I currently work for called PolicyMe, and what has worked for us, how to set meaningful goals, what channels should you leverage, and editorial content from SEO 101, followed by an AMA that Ainsley will kindly facilitate. So basically why I just wanted to come today was to help you feel confident, clear, focused about your content marketing, and get rid of some myths and share some of my knowledge as I've transitioned from publishing to tech. So a little bit more about me. Way back in the Stone Age, I did the Humber publishing program. Good times. Worked at Penguin pre-merger for 4 years. First in PR and then in what was then called the catch-all online marketing, which was just like any single piece of content ever on the put on the internet. Things have probably changed since then, and I definitely welcome your comments in the chat, etc. I'm going to be asking for some like shout outs and contributions in the chat so you can give me a little more context of where you might be struggling, since I've been out of the industry for a good 11 years or so. Yeah, after the 4 years at Penguin, I jetted off to Mexico and did some freelance writing. And I actually became a self-published author, and I had a Kindle business online. I had a pen name, and actually did quite well for myself, having a cozy cat mystery self-publishing business. Don't ask. People love that stuff. And then came back to Canada and got into tech. I got hired at FreshBooks, which is a cloud accounting software, and really I learned SEO for content, and I have an English lit major, so I kind of finally figured out how to marry my love of writing with how to drive revenue for a business. So learned all about SEO, got hired at Venngage, was a Canva competitor, and their main revenue driver is, and I believe was and still is, content marketing, bootstrap companies. So, we're not talking big tech budgets here. So I can definitely relate from both publishing and tech, working with a very, very low budget. We didn't have budget for ads or anything that required money. So we just wrote our own stuff and made a very nice amount of money for the company doing that. Then I got hired at PolicyMe. So what is PolicyMe? So Canadian company, I've been working there for the past 2 years. It's what you call insurtech. So it's an insurance startup. Went from 20 to about 45 and growing fast people. We are backed by investors. We just closed our Series A last fall. So working with a bit more of a budget. We have proprietary tech to underwrite, which is risk assessing our applicants. We're going to be releasing more products this year. But go back. I was hired 2 years ago to drive revenue from SEO content. And there was a lot of things that were hairy at that time. A lot of blog content, none of it optimized for search, no acquisition pages, talking like landing pages, brand recognition, who is PolicyMe, never heard of her, low domain authority, if you know, you know. And we were in the process of migrating to a new CMS. Never recommend that starting a new job. We were going from WordPress to Webflow. Do not recommend. So what I've been doing over the past 2 years is I hired a team of 2. I mapped all of our existing content to keywords by cluster. So like topic, term life insurance, mortgage insurance, etc. Added acquisition pages to the mix, redirected a whole bunch of duplicate content, cleaned up all those hairy migration issues, set up a backlink program, which is driving links from authoritative sites to your site to make sure your content can rank better. And did a complete redesign because we hired a brand manager and we had a new look and feel. This is what happened. Okay, so first I know you're looking at my analytics screen at the top and you're like, that traffic is slow. And in my defense, I shall say the first year, really difficult with the migration. There was a lot of technical issues, but we grew. And maybe the traffic, as tech bros like to say, didn't 10x, but boy, did it convert. You can see at the bottom is policy crates. So that's a conversion metric that's further down the funnel. It's when you create an application and submit it. And then you have to settle after that. So that's where the money comes in. Typically, I look at like crates and sales. Anyway, the traffic that we were driving, or we have driven the past 2 years, was a converting machine. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about how that all came to be. Okay, so how did I do that? First of all, I really focused on what I know best personally, which is editorial SEO. Got really, really laser focused, did not focus on other channels, tried a top of funnel newsletter, got rid of it. Put organic social on autopilot. Really didn't spend a lot of time on other types of content, and now we're getting to a place where we can do that, but I really doubled down on editorial SEO. I focused only on SEO content that drove revenue. I ignored what I call pink sky content. This is any content that is not directly related to your business. So for example, 10 ways that your family can be more financially responsible. That would be pink sky content in my industry because it's tangentially related. It's personal finance related, but it's not actually related to, it's not about life insurance. So I didn't, and I know a lot of companies make that mistake. They focus a lot on pink sky content, and then they're like, whoa, we have so much traffic. Why is it not converting? It's not directly related to your business. So we had a lot of it when I came in, and then I just happily ignored it for the rest of my existence. Okay, ambitious quarterly goals. Content I know can do two things. It can assist other areas of a business, or it can be like a performance channel. Mine is very performance channel oriented. So I focus on conversion metrics quarter over quarter. And then if I want to test something, I have a completion goal. So I'll be like, produce 5 YouTube videos, test it as a potential acquisition channel. And then I pay attention very closely during the quarter to pacing. And if we're not pacing towards the goal, it's a fine balance of deciding when to pivot and making sure you're not being reactive. So we do monthly retros during the quarter where we decide, like, are we on track? Are we pacing correctly? Do we need to change our strategy? So being agile without being too reactive. Okay, book publishing. The struggle is real. I'm sure you all know this, preaching to the choir. So I'm here because I want to try to apply some of my learnings from working in content marketing and tech to book publishing. I know, having worked in publishing, that there's a number of challenges that you may be facing, which is like, you need to do everything all at once with no budget. The most vocal author gets the most attention. You know, I remember how that went down. There can sometimes be a lack of focus on goals, measurement, or why we're doing something. One of my favorite meetings that I remember was someone proposed leaving like arcs in the subway on the seats and just like seeing what happened. And yeah, that's not, I mean, that was a certain time, but that's something that I was seeing when I was working in publishing. And this might sound counterintuitive, but you know, people who work in publishing are very creative, and there can be a lot of pressure to be creative and do things that are out of the box, but without a clear focus on performance. So the nice thing about tech is that sometimes it can be a little dry, but there's a lot of safeguards in place to ensure performance, at least in a good tech company. So I definitely learned some rigor from tech, but as well, like the creativity and, you know, love of books that I bring as well. In my background as a journalist, I have also worked as a journalist doing reporting, so I have that background as well. Okay, publishing, love it. Okay, so this webinar is for you, but first, while I'm doing blah, 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 put in the chat any specific challenges you have with content marketing right now. Here are some suggestions that I have, but like, what are you struggling with in terms of content marketing? I know content marketing is very much a tech thing where it's like you have a content marketer title. And in publishing, that tends to be rolled into a broader title. But what are some things that you're kind of struggling with? Some ideas I have are like, what are the right goals for my content marketing program? What channels should I focus on? Should I start a podcast? The everlasting question. How do I measure what I want to do? AI with many question marks. How can I get buy-in on my content marketing? Why am I just blogging all the time? How can I get better results out of what I'm already doing? Et cetera, et cetera. You can see it on the screen. Let me see. I'm just gonna look in the chat for a sec. Hi, Claire. Okay. Figuring out where to start, what's most important. Yeah, okay, I'll help you with that. Spending lots of time on creative assets and receiving no rewards, no conversions, engagements. Yes, this is definitely for you. How do I accomplish the goals created by others for the content we share? Sandy, maybe you can put in the chat what you mean, like somebody else creates the goal for you and you're co-owning the content with them. How does that work? What's the best way to measure success? Love this question. Measurement is my friend. I love it. Yes, all of these are great things. You can keep putting, how can we find scholarly publisher? How can we find the right audience? Okay. I mean, audience is really important. A lot of it is just research, right? You have to know where your audience lives. You can use things like SparkToro and other tools to identify where your audience is online. But it really depends like what you're looking for from your audience. Are you looking to build awareness? Are you looking to build conversions? But how do you actually measure goals when sales are driven to multiple channels, not just our e-commerce? I had no input in the content strategy that was created by Inspect. To fill the strategy, Sandy, I'm here for you. It's all about knowing what you can do and communicating that. Okay, so if I don't get to anything that you actually say, please bring it up in the Q&A. I have to admit, I don't have all the answers. I've never worked in a giant tech company. We don't have a multi-attribution model. It's a little bit limited. And I work very independently with my content marketing program. I'm not a service kind of, I don't have a service function, so I'm just doing my own thing. But I'll do my best to touch on all of these questions, and you can put it in more if you think of them. Oops, going back. Okay, numbers. Getting clear on goals. I love and hate goals. Every quarter, I make new goals for my team. It's always, we start in the middle of the previous quarter and it's always down to the wire trying to figure out what the numbers are going to be. So if you feel that, I feel your pain. But something which you may be feeling is that like, and this happens a lot in startups, is everything seems important. There are constantly fires to put out. You're trying to do as much as possible. And of course, this is a recipe for burnout, right? But also ineffective and will not prove the worth of your content marketing program. So when I get confused, which is often because there's a million things coming at me, I always go back to the number. This is numbers. This is what grounds me. Okay, so this is a framework that was taught to me actually by Jane Flanagan at FreshBooks. And I'm not 100, I don't try to be too rigid about this, but it helps frame a little bit better why I'm doing what I'm doing and what channels I'm choosing to focus on, what tactics, etc. So I like to think of it as like a Russian nesting doll. There's 4 different layers. The first layer is the goal. And for a lot of you, a goal might be like, I don't know, sell 100 books in a week or something. But I try to think of goals as like the what. It's like the highest level. There can be multiple goals, and it's not measurable. So for example, my goal is acquire more customers from content. Yours might be get more leads. It can be as simple as sell more books, like whatever your company's goal is that translates down to your team's goal. That's what the goal is. Then you want to try to make it measurable, more specific, something, it's almost like a subset of your goal. So the objective that I have is X policy sales from SEO by the end of Q1 2024. I also have quarterly goals, which ladder up to this, but this is the end game. If it was leads, you could grow your prospect list to 50K by the end of the year. If it's sell more books, it's like, I want to drive X amount of revenue from books, ebooks, audiobooks. You can segment it, depends, but you're just quantifying it. So now you're getting a little more focused. You're like, okay, this is what I need to do. I have a measurable result that I'm tied to. Now, often what happens is that like, you'll be thrown an objective and then you'll have to like figure out a whole bunch of tactics to meet that goal. And that can be that can be pretty stressful because you end up throwing a whole bunch of tactics at an objective and hoping one of them works. The missing layer in between is the strategy. So that's the how. It's not the tactics. This is how you're going to compete within your market and achieve your objective. It's how you're going to do it. And then once you do the how will inform what you're doing. So for example, my strategy is mapping all of my content that I currently have to the funnel and the customer needs, finding gaps. And then the tactic coming out of that was identify the pages that I need to continuously refresh every month, and creating maybe X number of pages to fill these content gaps. If it's gating, then it's like produce 3 gated assets, etc. So anyway, I'm not going to say you need to use this whole framework, but it's a very good exercise that you might want to try. You know, do you even know what your goal is? Do you have an objective? Have you been using a strategy? And do the tactics, are they informed by a strategy? So it just helps you get a little bit more focused. When I first did this exercise, it was very overwhelming. It took me a couple weeks at least to wrap my head around it. So I encourage you to kind of think about it and think, do I have all the right information here? Is there something I need from my boss to better inform my work? What am I not clear on, etc. Next. Choosing your channels. Okay, choosing your channels, completely critical. There are always going to be channels that you probably can't get out of. Like, you have to produce sales enablement materials. You have to run organic social. You have to help promote events. And I've never worked in a company that's service oriented, but I know that the goal is to like either outsource it or make it as self-serve as possible, like getting the salespeople to actually create the first draft, and then you come in and do the final edit sign off. But aside from the channels that you're forced to support, forced, I say, you want a channel that you can own, that you have more control over, you can use to prove your worth, it's measurable. So what's that going to be? All right. I sincerely hope this does not confuse things more, but this helped me just kind of figure out a little bit more like what the opportunities are and where I should focus. You know, I'm sure you've all put your heart and soul into a campaign before, right? And it did absolutely nothing. Like, it's soul crushing to, you know, you feel like you wasted your time. And I'm definitely not against experimentation, but you definitely should know, like, okay, what channels are already working for my business and which ones needed to be tested with caution. And so I think about it like this way: fuel and engine are 2 different things. And if you have the right mix, that's where business growth happens. Fuel is all the kind of content. So the business positioning, the actual content and copy itself, the visual design, that can be like sales enablement materials, the email content, your case study, your blog post, that's all the fuel. The engine is more like the metrics you use to track your growth, the channels, the processes, and the tools. So that can be SEO is actually a channel, search engine optimization, like Google. And that's the channel. The blog content is the fuel. Conversion rate optimization, landing page tests, like A/B tests. So the actual content on the page would be content, and then doing A/B tests would be a test. The actual webinar setup, like this one, affiliate marketing, these are all engines. And usually, like any company, not just a startup, will over-index on either just focusing on fuel, just focusing on the engine, or like having both, but like it's the wrong mix. They don't work together. What do I mean by that? Okay. If you're an all engine, no fuel situation, you're saying things like, I don't need content. Let's just up our ad spend. I mean, I wish we all had that ability, right? That's more of a tech thing, I think. Like, it's just, you get a bunch of investor dollars and you're like, let's just throw some ad money at this. And then your CAC, your cost per acquisition, just skyrockets. that's like a growth marketing mindset, not a content mindset. All fuel, no engine. You're just publishing things. It's great. You have this beautiful ebook, distribution plan, never heard of her. Does this content rank for SEO? Don't know. It's more of a like fuel situation. And then you can get where fuel and your engine don't jive together. So like you actually like you're publishing blog content, you've optimized it for SEO. So you got fuel engine, but then you have all this traffic, but it's not converting. So, you know, there's something wrong there. It could be that the content doesn't align with your business. It, you know, doesn't serve customer needs. You're just, you know, you're not really sure. High email open rate, high unsubscribe rate. So the content is not matching customer needs. Lots of people working on a whole bunch of tactics and channels, but nobody's actually connecting the dots and thinking like, okay, how does this all work together and like drive business growth? So that's fuel versus engine. Okay, I'm very biased because this is my strength. But editorial content for SEO is a great way to build a business case for your content marketing or just marketing function. You know, it's really taken off in the last few years. This is when an organization uses its blogs, landing pages, comparison pages, any kind of like the online content for optimized for non-brand search term to drive traffic and then to drive revenues. Revenue singular. This requires content and SEO to work together, but if you don't have an SEO person, AI, I'll get to this later, can help you do this instead. You don't need a dedicated consultant or in-house person to help you anymore. I'm usually people specialize in one or the other. I do both. And I argue most content marketers should know both as well. Editorial SEO is great because it has a compounding effect, whereas ads, you know, you put $1 in, maybe get $2 back, but there's no compounding effect. You keep having to feed the beast. With editorial content, you know, it takes longer to take off, but I've really seen this within the last 6 months. It just like starts getting better and better and better. It's a really good investment long term. It does require some like knowledge, you know, presenting your case. But at least there's like more awareness now that this is a great way to drive revenue at much lower cost. Is it right for my business? If you drive about 1,000 sessions a month, you have about 1,000 referring domains. So don't worry about that. If you don't know that, something you can find in Ahrefs. It's the number of links coming back to your site that say you are an authority. And there's search volume in your industry, which most people, this is true. You should lean in the strategy. Now, one of my friends works for auto repair store software company, and there's no search volume in this type of industry. So obviously not going to work across the board. But if this is you, like your business, it may be time to try this, to do a 70% hedge bet. It's a channel which you are able to control and to measure, and which will help prove your success. And once you prove it, then you get buy-in to do more creative work in the future. Because there's nothing worse. I made this mistake. When I came into PolicyMe, I did some really cool projects. I did this big Angus Reid survey with over 1,000 Canadians, the state of personal finance in Canada 2022. And like I did a great ebook for it. And like the business, first of all, was not, in terms of brand recognition, not ready for that kind of initiative. Nobody was caring about that. You know, I hadn't really proven myself yet, though I did get the opportunity to do it. Yeah, I would have waited, but you know, overall, I have mostly been focused on editorial SEO. What was I gonna say here? Oh, yes. Book publishing. So how does this work? You probably rely on, I looked at, for example, a Nancy, like I know they rely a lot on like title or author keywords to drive traffic, like Skim, Seven Fallen Feathers, whereas Penguin UK ranks for much broader terms like types of poems, must-read books, classic literature, Edgar Allan Poe quotes, and other like general search terms which net them traffic. So there's definitely more out there than just like your author, your brand name, your book title to go after out there. Next, customer needs. Okay, so if you're going to get started on editorial SEO, it's right for your business. So you got to set some goals and objectives, then you move on to your strategy. So no matter what channel, SEO or otherwise, you probably need to center your strategy around customer needs. Do you actually know what your customers' needs are? Most people, a lot of people say they know what their customers need, but they don't talk to them. So that's the difference. Then you also want to get clear in your funnel, mapping your content. And at that point, you should do keyword research, though I break this rule all the time. I love doing keyword research because I'm a nerd. Next. All right. Okay, exercise time. What's the single business biggest problem you can solve with content? Apparently I can't speak anymore. So put in the chat what you think this is for your business. Like what is it that your customers, potential customers struggle with that you can solve with content? So an example I have here for my business is, please make it stupid simple for me to compare life insurance providers and make the best choice for me. It is very overwhelming as a newbie to come into life insurance and like what type of product, what company. One of our best converting posts is a life insurance reviews, best life insurance Canada post, does amazing. What will it take to make my small business profitable? FreshBooks has a post about the break-even formula, which is one of their highest traffic posts. How can I communicate quickly and effectively in my marketing materials, sales deck, or training materials? Post is about infographics. Infographics solve so many things. So I'm going to open the chat and see if anyone has anything here. If you read this, you're cool, field to my posts. Okay. Would I recommend Yoast SEO or similar WordPress extensions? I've used Yoast before. I don't use WordPress anymore though. I feel like there's much better tools out there now for SEO than integrations. I mean, WordPress probably has a host of things, but I've used things like Phrase, Surfer. Those are all SEO tools, which are probably much more robust than Yoast, though it's been a couple of years since I used it. Anybody else have any problems you think you can solve with content? If not, I'll just keep going on, but just noodle on that. All right, collecting customer needs. Okay, so get more information. This can be whether you talk to your customers, go on online communities like Reddit. I read Personal Finance Canada on Reddit all the time to see how people think about insurance. Read industry reports, any data that you have, and I'm sure you have a lot that your company has done. Map out all those needs and try to consolidate them. Try to identify some common themes. So for example, like common needs in my customers are, I'm aware of life insurance and I probably should get it, but I'm not really sure if it's for me, if there's urgency there. I'm lying awake at night thinking about how I have kids and a mortgage, but like I can't get motivated to actually get started. Another need is like, please make it, as I said before, stupid simple for me to get started. I just want to get this done, make it easy. Another one is like, I need to figure out how to top up my group life insurance needs. So just try to figure out what those needs are. Conversion funnel, I've got all the fun stuff today, let me tell you. Okay, as any marketer knows, no customer follows a conversion funnel from top to bottom. There's no person, or there is some, but not many, who goes from like an informational what is article to a solution type post to a product page in one session and then converts. I mean, it happens, but like You know, people might come at the product stage and they go up to problem and solution, and the next day they're in a pink sky content piece. But this just kind of works to give you a sense of what types of content are available. Pink sky, as I said, is like stuff that's not directly related to your business. Probably should be about 10% of your content. It works better for bigger businesses where you really want to drive that traffic and try to push them into the funnel. Or it can be for something like ad retargeting, building lists, all that kind of stuff. Problem is like you're illuminating the situation, like the person lying in bed at night. Do I really need life insurance? You know, a post about like, do I need life insurance? You're kind of agitating the problem, getting them worked up about it. Solution, about 25% should be, how do you solve the problem? Mention your product. For example, 100 books everyone should read. Best life insurance companies in Canada. And then a product page, which for you folks is probably like a product page for a specific book. It's where you seal the deal. For me, it's like acquisition pages, case studies, comparison pages. Should be about 15%. Yeah. And I don't want to overwhelm you with stuff. I'm definitely like kind of just giving you everything I know right now. This is also something I learned from Jane at FreshBooks. This can just help you think, if you have existing content, what stage is it at? Now, the first stage is wall of text. So everybody's got that down. You can just go into ChatGPT, spit out a blog post, publish it. You got your wall of text there. Hopefully it's partially keyword optimized. That's where everybody usually starts. Then as you go up the levels, the content becomes better. And this is not just for SEO, it can be for any type of content. It becomes harder for your competitors to beat because of the quality. And thus becomes harder for your rankings, your position 1, 2, 3, and the search results to be displaced. So you can make things like have for micro conversions. Could be CTA, could it be an opt-in, downloadable, like original graphics. Then you go up to videos and adding more SMEs, subject matter expert type content. Then you add tools, templates, calculators, and then first party data. So do not approach this in a blanket fashion, though. I have tried this. It is bad. You don't say, for every piece of content I have, I'm going to level it up from 1 to 3 in 1 quarter or a year. Each piece of content will have a specific need. You know, your wall of text may be working great for you. Or your competitor has content which might have an SME interview, they might have an original video, or you might just need to like proactively try to up your content before you get displaced. So before each quarter, and I just did this, when I build out my editorial calendar, I scope first. So I look at every single piece I'm committed to, and I think, does this need an infographic? Does this need a video? Like, does it need an SME interview? I get my ducks in order ahead of time, and I decide what the piece needs, the minimum effort for maximum results. And then I go from there, because I've tried just doing everything before, and we all know that that never works well. Building your case. Okay, this one's tough. I mean, first of all, what I typically recommend is you just list out all the content you have, and you say, does it meet this need? What funnel stage is it at? And what content level is it at? And then you look for gaps. You're like, okay, I have way too much pink sky content. Like, where are my product pages? My stuff is all wall of text. No wonder it's not ranking, because, you know, it's so competitive. You know, I have a lot of content that addresses a particular customer need, but none of this. So you start figuring out your gaps, and then try to figure out like the non-negotiables, the sales enablement material, like how much time do you have to spend at that? Can you carve out some more time to dedicate to editorial SEO or whatever channel you want to invest in? And then, for the love of everything, don't go all in. I've done this before where you're like, I'm going to commit to this tactic, this channel, which I'm excited about, presented as a test. So something tightly scoped. So I'm going to produce one podcast episode. I'm going to, or I'm just going to add audio to my blog post and see if people even play it, if they even care about audio in the first place. You know, I'm going to add like the option to get a call back from our sales team, but I'm not going to add like an email nurture. I'm just going to see if people actually click on the button and it even works. You know, what's the lowest possible quality YouTube video I can get away with? And like, does it work for the audience? Should I actually invest in producing more? Do people actually want a top of funnel newsletter from my business, or is it so saturated with the market's so saturated with these types of newsletters, like in my case, personal finance, that like it's not gonna, there's no room for me. I should either appear in other people's newsletters and leverage their audiences. What's they always say in tech, minimum viable product? Like what's the smallest thing I can test to see whether I should take this forward? And I've been guilty of this many times. I'm still figuring this out, how to scope things down so I can test it before I scale it. Okay, content production system. We're getting to the end of my presentation. We're going to leave about 15 minutes for questions, so you can interrogate me about all the things I didn't talk about. But content production system, this is the holy grail. Having that like beautiful workflow that just, you get the quality, you get the speed, you know, everything is just ironed out. You know, we look at our workflow every quarter pretty much and see where we can improve. And now with the explosion of AI, of course, you know, we're trying to figure out how we can incorporate that into our processes. One thing we're trying this quarter is we have decided to not have any freelance writers, and we're relying more on tools. So once we pick all of our pieces, then we use Surfer. You can use Surfer, Phrase. These are all programs that analyze the SEO score essentially of your piece, give you recommendations. They act as like an SEO consultant. They make it easy for you to make changes, analyze your piece against your competitors. And then with a program like Surfer, you can import your work directly into Jasper, which is an AI program like ChatGPT, but it's a little more geared towards writing for the web. So then you can integrate with that. And if you have WordPress, I believe you can integrate your copy directly into your CMS web WordPress, not with Webflow, unfortunately. So we're trying to build more automation. I've been like writing my video scripts, the first draft with ChatGPT. So just relying on the tools a little bit more, but at the same time, like really being clear about like, what's your quality must-haves? Like, do you want to make sure you have a very strong point of view in each piece of content, your unique take? Like for us, it's like most people don't need permanent life insurance. They need term life insurance. And here's why. Do you always want to have 2 to 3 original sources in each piece, like original interviews, etc.? Do you insist on using proprietary data? Do you want to have original graphics in each piece? So that's how you can balance out with the quality, especially using AI. And this is also how you win in Google, right? Because they're all about helpful content. And while they're not against AI software, they don't care how you produce your content as long as it's helpful. Having this kind of thing will kind of act as the stopgap to say, okay, well, we generated this from AI, but we also have these like quality standards we're adhering to. Having a really strong process, briefs, editing checklist, formatting checklist, QA checklist. We work with Trello for all of these things, but also at the same time, I can say like, don't let it constrain you, because you can get to a point where you have so many processes, you're so bogged down. We analyze every quarter, we visualize our workflow, and we figure out where the blockers are, the time sucks, the dependencies, where we can cut. And then editorial calendar, like I said, scoping, baselines, I always pull previous 6-week results, or I baseline off of previous pieces for 6 weeks results. So I have numbers that can tell me whether the piece is performing as it should. and then commit to your deadlines. Okay. Lots of information. I think you'll all get the slides later, so I will not go through all of this, but quickly, just thinking about what type of content do you have too much of? What do you need more of? Do you have clear content clusters? What content's working for you? Why? Do you even know what your customers want? All this fun stuff. Quick tips to get started. This is where I'll end off because I know this is a lot of information. It's very overwhelming. It took me a long time to wrap my head around all of this stuff. But some things that you can kind of start out with are, I highly recommend Tracy Wallace's contentment newsletter. She has some amazing stuff around content marketing. Marie Haynes is also a female SEO, amazing Canadian, and she knows all the current stuff going on in SEO. So she's the best person to read. Learn the tools you need to make good business decisions. Commit this quarter to learning a tool that you've been afraid of. Scope your work and identify no-goes. Audit your checklist, process and documentations, your vendors and your tools. Do they still serve you? Yes or no? Figure it out. Test and then scale. Do not scale and test at the same time. Famous last words. Have a frank conversation with your boss. Is your current content marketing program meeting expectations? Get clear on that. If not, that's fine. Like, figure out how to turn it around. It's partially his or her job to help you do that. So get them on board and figure out where you are. And do a half or full day hackathon. And if you need to do some content, use ChatGPT, go nuts for half a day, produce a whole bunch of content and publish it. Don't go nuts, but test like 5 posts. You might be surprised. Make it fun. Try something wild. All right. That's it for me. Thank you, everyone. And now throw it to Ainsley.
Thanks for this, Brownyn. This is great. I have so many questions, and I think our audience do as well. I guess my first one, I was thinking when you were talking about like the fuel versus the engine, and how in book publishing, like there's a constant stream of fuel, right? Like there's the books themselves, and they come season after season after season. You have the like jacket copy, you have often access to the author to like do Q&As, get author interview stuff. So the publishing is not lacking for fuel, but they are lacking for like time often. So like if you could say like the one thing that a time-strapped marketer in book publishing could do that would be like worth its weight in time, what would you say?
I don't know. One thing that I remember from publishing is that like it can be tough to leverage your own audience. So sometimes just providing the author, if they have their own audience, with the right content to get out there and like to get their readers excited. That can be invaluable. But otherwise you have to figure out for your specific business, like what has worked before to get the word out? Like, is it your email list? Is that where like you have the best chance of reaching people and converting? Is it people visiting your site organically? Do you have like a organic social following, or does your author hopefully, pick a channel and lean into it? Hopefully you have some success already, so otherwise maybe you don't have success and you need to figure out where your readers are so you can have the best impact. You need to do some audience research.
Okay, we have a question from the chat here about measuring goals. So if your goal is sales and driving revenue, how can you measure that when they're going to multiple channels, right? Like your e-commerce site, but also to the bookstore. Like, how do you tell which one is driven by your efforts?
It depends on your attribution system. I use Google Analytics to look at where all my traffic is coming from, whether it's YouTube or organic social or organic search or ads. So, but I have to be honest, like, we don't have a robust multi-attribution or multiple source kind of system. So I can't give you advice on that one, unfortunately.
It's a tough one. That's a tough one. I think I've been out of publishing, like book publishing proper, for I don't know, 7 or 8 years, and I remember talking about that back then. So it's a continuous, I think, evergreen struggle. Somebody else is asking, how do you measure performance for like a publishing adjacent event, like a book festival? So it's year-round content, but it's like a once-a-year event.
Are we talking like an in-person kind of event?
Or
like
maybe online, but once a year, contained event. Yeah.
An online event. I mean, it depends. Again, it's like, it depends what your goals are for this event, in person. Okay.
Yes, in person.
What are your goals for the event? Is it just general awareness? Like, are you just looking for like attendance numbers? You know, do you have like sales materials with a unique code and you're trying to get people to go back to the site? I haven't done like event marketing in a hot minute. But it really depends on what your goal is for that particular event, how you're going to track it.
I have a question. How concerned do you think that content marketers should be about AI? Like, are we all gonna be replaced?
No, you can't replace a brain. I mean, that's like some maybe functions like writers, I'm sure, are already feeling the hurt in terms of freelance writers. But content marketers, like, you will always be needed if you can be strategic. So the things that I just walked you through, thinking about translating business goals down to your content, no AI is going to be able to do that. It can optimize a blog post for you, but it's not going to tell you exactly what your business strategy should be. The two things that I've been told are the most valuable are being able to translate, as I said, business goals down to content, and also being the voice of the customer. So the person who knows, who does the research, who talks to the customers, and at every conversation is the person who can be like, no, like I've done this research, you know, this is actually what the customer needs. AI is not going to be able to chip in on that either. That's super valuable because that always will guide and make successful business decisions.
Do you think there's any concern about giving our content, specifically in book publishing, over to AI?
Yes, everybody should be aware of that. I mean, you put that into, if you ask like it to repurpose something, you put it into one of these tools, like, you know, they're going to use it as part of their, I don't know what it is, natural language processing, their algorithm. That's going to be incorporated into the machine's learning. So you should be aware that that is now in a place you don't know where it lives. So yeah, be very careful when you're putting in proprietary materials.
And another question from the chat: is repurposing content recommended?
Yes, repurposing content is where it's at. I mean, you know, that's the beauty of ChatGPT, right? Like, I can take a blog post now. I'm not as worried about proprietary stuff personally. So I'll put a blog post in, I'll say, okay, make this into a video script, make this into 5 social media posts, give me a headline idea. Like, I've even like asked it, I should have done it with this webinar, like, give me an outline for this like business slide deck. You know, that's the beauty of AI. You can just constantly take one source of content and repurpose it into others. I know now you can have like AI images. That's a thing. Yeah, it's amazing what you can do, and you can do things a lot faster now.
It is amazing. I mean, how many weeks has it been since it's really been available widely? And it's just, yeah, it's hard to keep up with.
Yeah, there's a lot happening, and Google has like Bard now, apparently, which is its own version, and Bing has its own like scary demon version, which is apparently gone off the rails. So yeah, it's a wild world out there right now.
Yeah, only more to come, I bet. So somebody's asking, besides WordPress, are there other web hosting services that can ingest CSV or XML files to update biblio and stock information?
You come to the wrong place. I have no clue.
Good question. We'll have to answer that outside of this
All right.
Yeah, when you were talking about pink sky content and trying to find a balance between like the top 5 books about a subject, right? That was kind of the pink sky content. A balance between that and like more focused content. Like, what do you think for publishers would be the best thing to replace the pink sky content? Like, would it be author interviews, like book excerpts, stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends where the traffic or the audience is coming from. Like those listicle stuff are gold for publishers. I've talked over the past couple of years a few times to Nathan at Kobo. I know he does really well with his like listicles, like here's recommendations this week. Like he produces that very frequently. Apparently that's one of his best kind of series that he does. And I saw like in Penguin UK, there's a lot of listicle type stuff, best classic books that you should read, the top 100 books that everyone should read. And there's a lot of search volume around those type of queries. People want recommendations. That's why they join places like Goodreads. So that is actually what I consider like middle of funnel content, because you're at solution stage. You're like, well, what should I actually read? And at that point, you have the opportunity to link out to your product page so that you can make the sale. So this is a very safe strategy for publishers because it's like direct to sale, right? Like there's no nurturing that needs to really happen. Whereas a pink sky content would be something not really related to books. It'd be like 5 ways to relax on the weekend. One of them would be reading a great book. That's a terrible topic, but you're trying to attract a broader audience, but with like really no hope of converting in the near term, at least. So listicles are always great.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. Okay, well, I think that might be all of our questions for today. So I think we will say thank you very much for joining us today, Brownyn. That was really informative. And before we go, we'd love it if the attendees could provide some feedback on this session. We'll drop a link to the survey in the chat. Please take a couple minutes to fill it out. We'll also be emailing a link to the recording of this session once it's available. And lastly, we'd like to thank the Department of Canadian Heritage for their support through the Canada Book Fund. And thank you to all of you for joining. And thanks again, Brownyn, for sharing your content marketing knowledge with us.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.